This might be the strangest Commodore 64 type-in I've ever entered. It's called Kor's Elf, and it's a typing game from January 1985. Every bit of it is quirky. It starts with one of the craziest backstories I've ever read. Then come the graphics that occasionally don't work. Topping it all off, it comes from Home Computer Magazine, one of the most interesting computer publications of the 80s. I can't wait to share this one with you. Let's get typing. Kor's Elf, a 1985 game published in Home Computer Magazine, was recommended to me by a viewer and I was immediately intrigued. Glitch graphics and problems with the ending in a published game? Yes please, this absolutely sounds like a type-in that's worth digging into. It also highlights an interesting reality of computer magazines in the 80s. They were under constant pressure to publish new programs every month. That meant editing, porting, debugging, and transcribing programs, all while racing towards the next deadline. A large publication like Compute, with a circulation of around 400,000, would have had the resources to manage that process. But for a smaller, scrappier publication like Home Computer Magazine, with perhaps a tenth of Compute's reach, resources were probably a bit more stretched. Which means that sometimes, when things were most hectic, errors could slip through. Of all the magazines that I've covered in this series, Home Computer Magazine is one of my very favorites. Not because it was the best, that will always be Compute for me, but because of its energy. They weren't afraid to try new things and break conventions, even though those conventions were only a couple years old at the time. I mean, just look at this issue. They've got a photo of a disc burger on the cover, and proudly proclaim that it includes 34 type-ins. 34! Aside from Kor's Elf, this issue included a type-in database program, a quiz construction set, multiple games, and a loan calculator. And most of those were available for multiple platforms. And they went deep. Each came with detailed technical documentation explaining how the program worked. Then there were the code listings themselves. Somehow, they're both the ugliest and the cleverest listings in any magazine. They realized that counting spaces and characters could be frustrating. So their solution? Print everything on giant sheets of graph paper with thick, dark grid lines. Quirky? Absolutely. But innovative and useful? Also absolutely. You can tell these guys loved experimenting and weren't afraid to be different. You've got to respect that. Kor's Elf fits the publication perfectly. Written by Sean Blevins, it's basically a typing game. You know, one of those games that teaches typing by having letters appear on the screen. Games like this are an interesting artifact of the 80s actually. Before this, typing was mostly a specialized office skill. But then computers became popular and suddenly millions of us needed to learn. Typing software exploded in popularity and Mavis Beacon became a household name. So the fact that Kor's Elf is a typing game in 1985 isn't really a surprise. What's more surprising is the narrative wrapped around it. It's absolutely bonkers. I've read through the description a few times and I'm barely hanging on here. There's just so much going on. The land is ruled by the evil Overlord of Kor. He's enslaved and hypnotized the letters, draining them of their will to spell, which has alarmed the Kor's Elves, the longtime friend of the letters. So we're going to awaken them one at a time with our magic. Then we're going to steal the Overlord's mystic sword, slay him, and save the kingdom. So you know, your basic backstory. The article even explains that it's incorrect to call our heroes Kor's Elves. They're Kor's Elves because the plural form of the word elf hadn't even been invented yet. It's such charmingly overcommitted world building, and I love it. But for a quirky publication like Home Computer Magazine, it's spot on. This one has been fun to type in. Written entirely in BASIC, Korself uses many of the classic tricks of a Commodore 64 arcade game. It features character graphics, SID sound effects, randomized screen decorations, and sprites. What really caught my attention though was how it handles those sprites. Collision detection is used, and the sprites themselves are constantly being manipulated. Colors are changed, and they're being turned on and off all over the place. And the way it does this is clever. It showcases a classic programming trick that I wanted to explore a bit deeper. Let's dive in. When you have a coding task that needs to be repeated often, defining a subroutine is typically the best way of handling it. Instead of repeating the same instructions over and over, you simply call them using a go sub statement and then continue on your merry way. This isn't just a clever Commodore trick either, it's a programming best practice, and that's exactly what Korself does for handling sprites. So when the game wants to turn a sprite on or off, it sets a couple of variables and calls a subroutine. SP tells the routine which sprite to manipulate, and OO indicates whether it's going to be turned on or off. M is always set to 53269, which is the sprite enable register. With those values set, the program heads off to the subroutine itself to do the actual work. If the sprite needs to be turned on, execution jumps to line 2780. Otherwise, it executes 2770. In either case, the variables get reset and the subroutine returns the program back to continue where it left off. It's a small routine, but it's doing a lot of work throughout the program. Of course, sprites have other properties besides whether they're visible. There's color, collision state, position, and more, and this routine only handles that one task. Everything else has to be managed elsewhere in the program. In other words, this routine assumes the rest of the program has done its job correctly. And somewhere, the program didn't. We know there's a problem. But it sure isn't with this efficient little routine. Cool, right? Coincidentally, the very last section of code for the program is that same sprite on-off routine, and I'm just finishing it now. There are 270 lines in total, and the author did a great job commenting the code, which always makes typing it in more enjoyable. There were also sections dedicated to a title screen and custom music, and a bunch of data statements for the sprites, music, and character graphics. And oh yeah, what on earth is this? This is a first for me. I've run into errors in magazine code before, but have never seen anything quite like this. It's just so obviously completely wrong. But if you look at the line right above it, it's never even going to get run, so it's just a goofy artifact. I'm keeping it in. And there was no proofreader for this one. Home Computer would eventually develop one that they called Bug Out, but it wasn't yet available in this issue. And we're done. That took just over an hour to type in, not too bad. We'll just save that. And cool, 36 blocks, which is 9K. I'm looking forward to running this one. Let's see how it looks. Oh cool, that's a fun title screen. Always gotta love what you can do with reverse on and the spacebar. It's a bit glitch though, the second and fourth lines need an extra space. That's an easy fix. And speaking of fixes, let's see what's wrong with 2510. Oh, I see. I had a typo in a read statement. That'll mess things up for sure. Okay, let's try that again. Oh man, that's not good. Okay. This seems like it's probably related to the data statements. I'm going to fix that title and then do a code review. I'll just add a couple of spaces in there. And there we go. That was easy. All right, now for the hard part. I found 6 typos during my review, which actually seems pretty good for a 270-line program. I'm getting pretty good at this typing thing. And as expected, there were a couple of typos in the data statements, but if I had to guess what line caused the problem we saw, my bet's on this one. Having an error in a read loop is always a good way to get some interesting results. I also checked the next few issues of the magazine and didn't see any corrections, so I'll bet we're done now and ready to go. I like how the space character was redefined to give it a little more texture. It's a nice touch. Oh, and that music is fun. And about as quirky as I'd expect it to be, considering everything else. Oh man, seriously with the backstory. I think I've read this about a dozen times now, and it's still not making any sense to me. I'm not sure what that little symbol is for the easy skill level, but the crowns look terrific. Okay, let's start with easy. Oh, and here are the first letters. That's an X and an O. Gotcha. Okay, V and F. Check out the guy working the machine the letters are coming out of. He looks like he's right out of the Industrial Revolution. And that sound when the letters come out? Classic. These letters don't stand a chance. Gotcha. And cool, I guess that's the end of level 1. The background looks great, and I especially like the random wall decorations. They're regenerated every level, which gives the game an impressive amount of variety. I know these are doors, and that they say door, but for the life of me, all I see is dupe, which is better actually. Easy is way too easy, by the way. It gets a little tougher as our elf approaches the door, but not by much. Oh, and nice, we made it. And there's the Overlord's sword, just sitting at the top of the stairs. Nice job, Kor's elf. Oh, okay. It's pretty much the same. It's the same speed anyway. But check this out. This is the graphical glitch that was mentioned. It really feels like some sprite state just isn't getting reset properly somewhere. It's a bit of a mess, especially the dupe. Oh, sorry, door. But what's really cool is that the gameplay just works, glitches aside. And it's fun. And yay, did it again. But seriously, this isn't challenging at all. Let's try intermediate. Interesting, the graphics are still glitched. But the game definitely is faster. It's still too easy though. Let's try expert. Okay, definitely faster, but still not all that tough. I don't think I've died yet. Nope, I definitely hadn't died because I would have remembered that. That is not right. Like dupe levels of not right. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but it definitely wasn't a huge solid block of blue. This game is glitchy. But mostly, it's too easy. I can get past the expert level without too much trouble. It's too bad it doesn't speed things up more as you progress. That would be an easy change to make, actually. But why bother when I have a C64 Ultimate? I can just go into the system and adjust the speed. Listen to that. Now we're talking. This is the expert level at twice the speed. And yeah, this is a lot tougher. Oh, and I died. I like this difficulty. And game over. What about 3 megahertz? Okay, this is fast. Maybe a bit too fast, actually. I feel like 2 megahertz is the ticket. All in all, though, Kor's Elf has lived up to expectations. Based on the request, I was expecting something glitchy, but I wasn't expecting glitchy and bizarre. The bonkers backstory, the music, and that guy churning out the letters is all deliciously quirky. And hey, if you're up for a bit of a challenge, I'd love to see what you can do with the code. It's available for download on the Discord, and it would be amazing to see the glitchiness ironed out. We don't get many opportunities to fix a mistake from 40 years ago, so here's your chance. I know the Kor's Elves would appreciate it anyway. Sorry, Kor's Elves. For all its quirks, and yes, its bugs, this feels exactly like the kind of game Home Computer Magazine loved to publish. It's creative, ambitious, maybe a little rough around the edges, and completely memorable. I can't wait to dive back into their magazine and find more fun games to type in and play. And if you know of any good ones, let me know. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider leaving a like or subscribing. And if you have any memories of Kor's Elf, Home Computer Magazine, or typing in your own programs, I'd love to hear them. Drop them in the comments. And don't forget to stop by the Discord. The link is in the description. Hope to see you again.